Hey, you guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Tristan Gabriel, and today I'm here with Alan Bondar, and we were supposed to have a debate with Stephen Whitsett, but he's not showing up, so I'm not sure what's happening, you guys. He did respond when I messaged him on Facebook Messenger. He did make a slight statement, and then now I don't hear from him. So I hope everything is okay with Stephen, and hopefully he'll come back on within the next few minutes. But anyways, Alan, go ahead and take the floor. We were supposed to have a debate, and Stephen is not here, but he did respond. We saw the message, and so I'm not sure what's happening.
Well, I hope he's okay. Yeah, I hope there's nothing happening. So yeah, Steve, we hope you're doing all right. And if necessary, we can reschedule, I suppose. But so I don't have a an affirmative to debate against. So
well, you're the victor. If he doesn't show up, yay,
yeah.
you won. So you can just present all your arguments as to why, yeah, I mean, it's yeah.
Well, I'll go ahead and I guess I'll do what my opening was going to be, and then we can go from there, and you can ask questions, we could talk, and we can get on the floor and see who's going to be here.
Cool. So, all right. You guys that are in the comment section, if you want to go ahead and throw any questions or challenges, go ahead. But just want to let you know it was supposed to be a formal debate with Stephen Whitsett, and he has not shown up. So,
all right. So I will go ahead and present my opening statements. When a claim is made, especially one that carries the weight of eternal punishment for not accepting it, the evidence should be extraordinary and readily available before one accepts that claim as gospel truth. It seems the only evidence God has for providing for his existence is a book that tells us he made everything. There are many scientific and logical possibilities regarding our existence that do not include God. Possibilities that have come to us through 2,000 years worth of scientific advances that they did not have when the Bible was written. But the difference between science and religion on this point is religion has declared to know that it's God, whereas those of us who desire conclusive evidence before we draw a conclusion are content to simply say, we don't know. It is arrogant to declare that you know something for certain that you do not have conclusive evidence for. Of course, there are some Christians who admit that we can't know for sure that God exists, yet claim to have a personal relationship with him. It's a bit suspicious to say you have a personal relationship with someone you don't know for sure exists. Regardless of whether you know for sure that God exists or you have a personal relationship with the God you don't know for sure exists, filling the uncomfortable gap of I don't know with God simply because you don't like the other options is not the way to determine truth. If I have a piñata with candy in it, and I say, I don't know how many pieces are in it, and you say, you know there are 152 pieces of candy in it, even though you're just guessing, does that mean you're right because I don't know? Of course not. You still have to demonstrate that you're right. And if I say, I'm not convinced your guess of 152 candies is true, does that suddenly become a piñata worldview? No. And neither does being an atheist mean atheism is a worldview. It just means I'm an A152er and an atheist until both are demonstrated to be true. But nobody walks around defining themselves or their worldviews by negating all unknown and unknowable things. That would be ridiculous. Drawing conclusions because uncertainty is uncomfortable is not a reliable method for finding truth. We may want there to be meaning behind all the suffering in the world, but that doesn't mean there is any. We may want to believe there is a supernatural sky daddy who created the universe and also loves little old me so much that if I was the last person on earth, he would still send his son to die for me. But wishing it so neither makes it true nor makes it healthy. In fact, this belief is extremely harmful to us as individuals and to society. It degrades individuals to the degree that you need Jesus to have enough worth for God to accept, regardless of what degree that is in your Christian view of sin and God. It saddens me tremendously to watch my nieces and nephew be taught to believe that they are sinners and that the drowning of countless babies in a flood is just a wonderful story of God's ultimate love. But Christianity not only psychologically harms individuals, it imposes its beliefs on those who come in contact with it every day. It affects how you vote, how you think, and how you justify the immoral laws of God condoning slavery, misogyny, genocide, child molestation, and the stoning of children for disobeying their parents, to name a few, all while ensuring that shrimp are protected. And all of this because you believe in a God that you have no good reason to believe exists. You've just decided that he's the best option you can think of. And with complete lack of certainty of his existence, you bank your life on it. Why? Because your faith tells you there's an invisible being called God who does miracles like virgin births, resurrections, walking on water, and flying in the sky. All things we consider fiction by every standard, except for the special pleading called God. But we know for sure that God is real and does these things, even though he has never been seen by anyone who's alive, except the people who allegedly said they did in a book from 2,000 plus years ago. Why? Because the book says God is real, and God says the book is true in that same book. No one using reason, evidence, and an unbiased mind would ever fall into that circular trap. But the reason you accept all of this to be true is because you think faith is a reasonable way to determine truth. Faith is not the same as confidence or trust, as so many Christian apologists indoctrinate you to believe. They try to equate the two because faith is nonsensical to the degree that you'll often hear it argued, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. So on the one hand, faith is apparently a negative thing if atheists use it, but on the other hand, faith is so wonderful that you wish you had more of it. I suppose this means atheists have the upper hand then, unless, of course, faith is nonsensical and atheists aren't actually using faith at all. No, faith and trust are not the same. Trust is built on measurable evidence. Faith just accepts things without evidence. As Hebrews 11:1 states, faith is the evidence of things unseen. If you need faith, then it's because you don't have evidence. If you have evidence, then you don't need faith. As Christopher Hitchens said, it's called faith because it isn't knowledge. Apologetic arguments attempt to prove that God exists, but even the best apologetic arguments only demonstrate that something existed prior to this universe as we know it. They all fall short of providing evidence for the case at hand, namely that God exists. In order to conclude that God is the right answer that fills the gap of uncertainty, one must simply apply faith and voila, God appears. By way of analogy, imagine being on trial for murder, where the prosecutor has produced evidence that a human somewhere on earth committed the murder, but it wasn't sufficient evidence to prove that you were that human. At this point, the judge asks the prosecutor if he has any evidence to demonstrate you were the actual human who committed the murder. The prosecutor replies, "You just need to have faith, Your Honor. I've provided the evidence that a human committed the murder, but you just need to have faith that it was this human who did it." Would we not all agree that the prosecutor presented zero evidence for the case at hand? Sure, he provided evidence that a human did it, but that is not what the case at hand is about. The case at hand is about proving that you were the human who did it. Thus, the prosecutor has provided zero evidence for the case at hand. Would you high-five the judge for declaring you guilty based on faith? Yet, this is the way apologists argue for the existence of God. They prove that something has always existed and then claim that the something is God. When asked if they have any evidence proving the something that has existed, always existed is God, the response is, you just need to have faith. This amounts to zero evidence for the case at hand, namely the existence of God. And since this is as far as apologetics can take us, apologists attempt to turn it around and say, atheists need to prove that God doesn't exist. It is absurd to make a claim without any evidence to support it, and then tell someone who doesn't believe that claim that they now have the burden of proof to demonstrate that claim to be false. This is useless rhetoric because I cannot disprove an unfounded claim when I have nothing in support of that claim to refute. To date, there has never been an argument for the existence of God or the supernatural that didn't also require faith to secure belief in it. If there was, then faith would be unnecessary. But as it stands, the arguments for the existence of God are utterly useless to accomplish the task at hand, since faith is required anyway. You might be thinking, so what? Faith is essential for belief in God. And you would be correct. But what is faith? Well, we don't exactly know. We can't explain how it works. We just use it to justify our belief in something that has no warrant. Strangely, anything can be believed by faith, like I have faith that I've already won this debate because the great debate god died and rose from debate hell to ensure me the victory. I wrote a book yesterday that told me so, and it was inspired by the holy debate spirit, so I know it's true. But of course, as a Christian, you know that's not true because your faith tells you there's only one God, and it's not the great debate god. It turns out that only the version of religion each individual holds to at any given time is the right one, which might change tomorrow. Allow me to entertain this idea that faith is essential for belief in God. Since we cannot determine the validity of the claim that God exists using the scientific method, we need a method that can provide proof of the supernatural realm. Why? Because there has been no other method that has provided a way to establish verifiable evidence of whether or not the supernatural realm exists. But because we're entertaining the proposition that faith is essential for belief in God, let's test whether faith is a possible method to prove God exists. I don't think this method will work, but we're going to play it out, lest anyone say that atheists are just trying to be stubborn and refuse to consider faith as a viable option. Some adults have relationships with an invisible partner they truly believe is real. They can't produce any proof their partner is real. They simply claim their partner is real. Now, I don't know which type of Christian you are, but most, if not all the Christians I know would say this person is either being silly or has mental issues. And yet, when asked to prove that God exists, the response from these same Christians is that they have faith God exists. They simply claim that God is real without any evidence. What is the difference between claiming God is real without evidence and claiming the invisible partner is real without evidence? Are not both claims equally valid, or rather invalid? Which method are we going to use to distinguish that God is real but that the invisible partner is not? Well, if we use the scientific method, every one of us would come to the same conclusion, that neither God nor the invisible partner is real. But let's put the method of faith to the test and see where it leads. Perhaps you're the type of Christian who thinks we should simply accept that the invisible partner is real by faith based on the claim alone. After all, since we can't say the personal experience you claim to have with God wasn't really an experience with God, then we can't reject anyone's personal experience with their invisible friends either. What you are saying is that claims alone are proof enough and should be accepted as truth. In this case, since our method of testing is that claims alone are proof, both God and the invisible partner do indeed exist. But this also means neither God nor the invisible partner exist if I make the claim that they don't. This creates an inherent problem with trusting experiences alone to determine truth. So in this case, you might add a qualifier. Only claims that declare something does exist can be accepted because those who don't think something exists do not have a personal relationship with that person or thing. Okay, let's add that qualifier. I have a relationship with the boogeyman, who is also the supreme God who tells me he killed both Yahweh and this invisible partner. That is my claim, and I know it's true because my invisible boogeyman God told me so. You see, if we apply the same faith-based method without any filter or special pleading, then any claim, no matter how absurd, becomes equally valid. So at this point, you realize you need another qualifier, and on it goes. You end up adding qualifier after qualifier until the method boils down to this. Only claims affirming that Yahweh exists and his word is true count as proof. The faith method is a method intended to restrict everyone to a single proposition in order to maintain your dogma. It is not a method to test if that proposition is actually true. When you have evidence, you trust it because it is sufficient for the case at hand. When you don't have evidence for the case at hand, you resort to faith. We don't choose what to believe. We're either convinced or we're not. The reason people are convinced God exists is because they think faith is a good and necessary way to live and make decisions. But it is not. And since there really is no good reason to believe that God exists apart from faith, then you now have to ask yourself whether you really wish to live by faith. The second you stop living by faith is the second you will stop believing in the supernatural. I simply ask you to consider this question. Is it better to hold belief without evidence or to withhold belief until you have evidence to warrant it?
All right. Very good opening. Right on time, Alan. Stephen has now entered into the debate. There was a misunderstanding on the timing, but nevertheless, Stephen has showed up, and Stephen heard some of the information. Maybe about 5 minutes, Stephen did not hear the opening, but for the rest and the bulk of it, I'm sure that he heard and comprehended and heard similar arguments. So, Steve, you have 12 minutes. As a matter of fact, our format, gentlemen, was the 12-minute opening for Alan. Alan, did you want to grant the 12 for Stephen, or because he came in late, did you want to somehow stick with the same format or alter it?
No, by no means. No, he can have the 12 for sure. Steve, okay. I'm glad you're here too, Steve. I hope everything's okay.
Yeah, we're worried about you. Oh, let me unmute you. My bad, I have to unmute. There you go.
I mean, I kind of like the idea of him doing his 12-minute on mute.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not on mute now, am I?
No, you're good.
No. Okay, well, if you want,
Stephen, no, I'm thinking Central Time the whole time because I live in Central Time, and I thought you lived. I didn't know you lived east. I thought you were in California, Alan.
No, I'm in Pennsylvania.
Okay, so my bad. So you're saying 3 hours difference. So that was you, Tristan.
No, it wasn't.
You're in California.
Oh, yeah. I'm in the one in California, yeah.
That's where I went thinking. All right, I'm ready.
Okay.
Well, don't too much, Steve, because I'm already enduring this awful snow that we've been having. It's freaking cold here like you wouldn't believe. Man.
All right. We'll go ahead and start.
Yeah, we've got 50 degrees today, so you ready?
I'm ready whenever you're ready, Steve.
All right. I'm ready to start.
Okay.
Listening to some things. Dinesh D'Souza, he said, where do I start? He said, it's like a mosquito in a nudist colony. It's like, where do you start? Where do you start? Well, I would start with scriptures. And I start with Romans 1:18. For the wrath of God was revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and the righteousness of men who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown them for his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world and the things that have been made, so they are without excuse. And in fact, in the Old Testament even, I'm playing on my computer here, moving something over. It says that only a fool believes that there is no God. So I know that Alan would dismiss this with 100 arguments, but the purpose of the debate is not to discuss the validity of the Bible. So let's just say Alan has no faith in the Word of God. So let's turn to secular sources for the debate. Now, we can go through because this is debated for years and years and years, and most recently, more strongly. So you have Frank Turek, you have William Lane Craig, John Lennox, Richard Carrier, Hitchens, who have all argued the debate with Dinesh, with all kinds of different people. So I'm not going to be here to repeat those same arguments. So now my opponent, he can argue all he wants to about the cosmological, the ontological, moral, introspective. There's all types of arguments that are being used to prove the existence of God. But the heart of this comes from, is about something that comes from nothing. And my opponent tends to think there is a validity in the idea that nothing is something, and they equate it to something of quantum physics and try to explain it all through that way. I've heard that discussion before. But we know that as we move, generations move along, we learn more and more. So, for instance, Christians used to believe that the earth was the center of the universe. Well, we don't believe that anymore. Things develop, we grow in understanding. And so we know that one man proved that the earth is not the center of the universe, and they killed him for it. So the question is, does God God exists. So the only way to settle the debate once and for all is that God had to show up and declare himself. I mean, wouldn't that do it all? What if God came down here and said, here I am. Hi, hello, I'm God. Well, we know that even with God to come down and say, here I am, they still will not believe it. Jesus rose from the dead, but you choose not to believe it. All because he didn't show up and prove himself to Alan, probably personally. And I would think that's what Alan would want. That would be the only evidence that he would accept if God showed up and say, here I am. He wants his own burning bush, but he never got it. He also assumes that God is, well, maybe probably too stupid or lazy to actually demonstrate. He lives through a historical account written down by men who witnessed those things and saw those things. But see, God is incapable of inspiring men to write a divine account without errors. That's where they stand. It takes more faith to prove God is incompetent than it is to prove he doesn't exist, actually. So, did he prove himself? Yeah, 2,000 years ago. And it was even Jesus who said, if even someone rises from the dead, they will not believe. Now, he performed many miracles right in front of their eyes. They still did not believe it. So I could have, 20 modern day miracles documented, proven by, a court of law, the x-rays, the whole 9 yards, whatever it is. And I bet Alan still would not believe it. So I can have 100 men declare that, but I know that's not good enough. Nothing is good enough. Nothing will ever be good enough in any kind of experience, testimony, or anything else. Even if I was to sit here and tell you, Alan, exactly what you did this morning without ever knowing or being there, and told you that, you went to Starbucks this morning or McDonald's and you had a coffee and you sat down and you talked with a couple other people and everything. And I just went through the whole morning and told you exactly what happened. You still probably would not believe. So, but here's the difference between you and most atheists. Unlike most atheists, Alan, you lived a life as a Christian. So what is he now saying is all of the emotional attachment, everything that you experienced was all delusional. And because you believe this, you also believe that there is no God, and all such mental assents are fake. So because of that, you assume everybody else is. I mean, how can anybody have an experience with a God that does not exist? That's impossible. So they all have to be fake. They all have to be lying. But you probably have never considered the fact, the idea that they're real, but now denying it. So the point is you're denying him before men, and he will deny you. Alan becomes an enemy of the cross and seeks now to dissuade people from what they believe and convince. And I believe that's the whole point of this debate, is that he wants people to believe that there is no God. He wants to convince people that there is no God. And he also assumes that no one else's experience is real either. And I believe that's an issue of pride that won't let you accept that it's real for others, but because of the pride, you failed to attain grace, meaning, did God ever prove to you? Did God ever show up to you and prove to you that he was real or existed? Maybe 6 years ago or 7 years, you might have said, yeah, he did. But now that's all wasted and gone. But let's explore something. If a person lives in pride and ego because of a position, respect is gained, where's the grace? And that's a challenge maybe on a personal level. I mean, what was the whole point of your Christian walk? Was it to attain respect from other people? Was it to attain, fame, fortune? I don't know. But I would think that at this point, and the way that I've listened to and heard you, is that you're mad at God. And if you're mad at God, how can you be mad at a God that doesn't exist? But you're mad because the whole thing was delusion, that you've been fooled all these years. But then I ask, who was it that told you it was delusion? Was God, obviously. So let me point out something. Full prideism is gangrene. It's cancerous. It rots from the inside. And this is what rots people's faith from the beginning. It's going to do it all the way through with every full prideism somewhere. It's going to rot them out. So I want to argue. My final argument is going to stem from cause and effect. And you say about faith. No, faith is not really the real thing. This is what's different. I can't see the wind, but I can feel the effect of the wind. I can look at the trees and I can watch the wind blow on the leaves. So even though I don't see it, I can measure it. I can see the effect of it. So as you were talking, I thought about this one. And it's interesting that you brought some of this stuff up and you talked about it a little bit. A small village has 100 people. 90 people have met Bob, but 5 have not. So those 5 declare there is no Bob because they've never seen him. They've never heard him. They've never touched him. They don't know anything. And so now they are so convinced that the other people, the other 95, are absolutely crazy for believing in a Bob because he never saw it. Doesn't mean they never saw him. It just means you did. And it's crazy to think that something does not exist simply because you personally don't see it. So Alan can argue they saw Bob, but God is invisible, right? Is he? Well, we know that he appeared many times in the Old Testament, but we know Alan won't believe that. For instance, in Genesis 25:16, it says that God of Israel ate and drank with them. He even appeared to Paul, Moses, whole host of people. But if you notice something like with Paul, he didn't appear to anybody else but Paul. And that appearing changed Paul's life. But that's just a story, right? So if I find a watch, do I assume it just came to be? It just, all of a sudden it existed. Can I ask, what is the purpose? What caused it to be here? Who made it? Or do I just assume that it just existed? It just came here by its own natural means and its own power? Or can I discern that it has something? Or does it just exist because it exists? So the fact that human descent can acknowledge its existence, it's baffling that it will deny the purpose or the reason. It exists because of something's greater than it made it and has caused it to be. It was made to tell time. That was its purpose. The Bible is revelation of why, the cause, and the reason. But see, that's not good enough for some people. So no one can come out and say the issue is settled based on that argument. But self-evidence is for the individual. He has not seen any evidence, therefore God does not exist. And he has seen it with his eyes, not experience. So experience no longer counts, right? Because if he gives it an inch that it gives ground for doubt, there can be no doubt in his mind. He has to have the truth because God, he is the almighty, all-knowing, or is it all-knowing Alan Bondar? And he's going to convince the rest of his truth, nor does he accept the effect that God has upon the world. And that's the interesting part. Everything is a result of random biology. So Alan, the moving of the trees and the leaf is not proof of the wind. I mean, that could have been a bird. That could have been everything else. So I'm going to make an argument just like Alan is probably about to do and to refute, but concerning something else. And I'm going to demonstrate what he's going to do. So I make the statement that Alan has never had kids in his whole life as a statement of fact. I say that is absolutely true. I believe it and I know it. Now I'm going to argue that truth. But he comes back and says, but wait a minute, I had a wife and kids. I got married and I had kids. But I'm going to question it. Well, is he the father? Can you prove those are your kids? Well, sure. Bring out the DNA or the evidence of people testifying. But see, that's not good enough. You got to bring out the DNA. All right. So you're going to trust the words of your wife and himself, but that's not evidence. So through the DNA, we can look at it and we go, oh, wait a minute. Well, it could have been a father. It could have been a brother. They have the same DNA imprint. They could have been the father, unless they died or didn't exist. But he has no proof for evidence that couldn't have happened over their word. But people lie all the time for their best interest. So the point that I'm getting at with this argument is this. Is it time?
It's time.
Was that 12?
It was 12.
Okay. Okay, so the point that I'm making is what Alan is doing, you have the probability of people actually listening and knowing about God for history, but he's going to hold on to that 1% probability and try to claim that as fact versus the multiple supernatural experiences and things that have happened. And
Okay.
we'll go on from there after that. All right.
Perfect. Now we have 5-minute rebuttals, and just so you guys know, when you guys are speaking, I do put up, 5 minutes or 1 minute, 10 seconds left. I do that as a courtesy while you guys are talking. So if you guys can see that, I will put that up on the prompt, and you'll know, hey, I have 5 minutes left, or we're all experienced speakers here, so we know what 1 minute feels like, what 5 minutes feels like. So, anyways, so 5-minute rebuttal on Alan's part. And I'll go ahead and set the timer for 5 minutes. And yeah, that's what we agreed to, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, here we go. Whenever you're ready.
All right. I'll try and work through your opening as best as I can. 5 minutes is quick to cover 12 minutes worth of material, but let me try to cover some things. First of all, you said a fool believes there is no God, and then you attributed that to me. That is not my position. Again, this is flat out a misunderstanding of what atheism is. It gets tiresome constantly trying to correct people in what atheism is. Atheism is not a position, a worldview. It is not a claim that there is no God. It is a refusal to accept a lack of evidence that there is a God. That is it. I am not making any claims, which is why I don't have the burden of proof here. I have not said there is no God. I've simply said demonstrate that there is, because currently I see no reason to believe there is one. So until you can demonstrate that I'm actually making some sort of a claim, then I have no burden of proof. I'm simply saying you're making the claim, please demonstrate it, and you haven't yet done that. And nor has anybody ever throughout history. You've made a lot of draws from the Bible, so I'm not going to cover all of the details on that, including resurrections and all this, but you say there's a lot of experiences and testimonies and people who said stuff. Listen, the problem is the Bible is the claim. It's not the evidence. The Bible is simply you can't use the same source from which the claim comes to also say the evidence comes. Once the claim is made, you got to find evidence outside of that claim. The Bible makes a bunch of claims, but no evidence to substantiate it. Not to mention, you'd have to prove the Bible is actually true for me to even accept that these evidences supposedly would be true, even if they were evidences. But I don't even buy that the claims actually happen. I think it's just a mythology and somebody just wrote it. You said something that comes from nothing comes from nothing, and that supposedly I believe that nothing is something, and you've made statements about what you think I believe. I don't believe that. I am an adherent of the nothing comes from nothing proponent. Now, when science uses the word nothing, it doesn't mean the same thing you mean in philosophy or theology. It's got a totally different nuance to what they mean by nothing. It is a something. But either way, I'm not arguing that position. I'm arguing that could be a possibility. I'm also saying God could be a possibility. I've never denied that God could be a possibility. I just see no reason to hold to that possibility, at least not with certainty, as you and other Christians do, because there's no reason to. What we don't know is what the laws are outside of this universe. We don't know how things functioned prior to Planck time. All we know are the laws that happen within this universe. So the laws of physics may not apply prior to Planck time, which may be the reason we can't go any further than that. To make an assumption and a leap that it has to be a designer and a God and all this, what you're doing is you're creating a being that exists with different laws that exist within our universe. If you can do that, then why can't I equally say, well, there's something else that existed prior to Planck time that shares the same types of laws that your God does, but it's not God. It's something entirely different. So you can't just jump to your conclusion and say it has to be God. We can come to an agreement and say, okay, whatever exists before this universe clearly must have different laws than exist within this universe. But what we can't do is draw a conclusion and say it is this, because we don't know. And that is the most honest position. It is not God. God is not the honest position. You said if God showed himself, we would still not believe. I don't know if I would still not believe. Here's the thing. I don't know what would be sufficient evidence for me to believe that God exists. All I know is if he showed it to me, then I would believe it, whatever that is. But clearly he hasn't demonstrated it. He hasn't chosen to show me the evidence necessary to believe in the supernatural. So I have no clue what would convince me of the supernatural. But when it happens, maybe I'll believe. My question is, how can I come to discover and have this wonderful personal experience that you're saying is how you must know God? Tell me how to have that, because to date, I've been asking people to tell me And nobody can seem to give me their same personal experience because apparently I can't cause it. God has to cause it, which means he's playing favorites. And really, it's hard for me to comprehend a God that would hold me responsible for trying to find him with all the possible evidence and falling short because there is no evidence to get me to God, because I have to leap by faith. But you can't just believe something. You don't choose to believe it. Like belief is something you're convinced of or not convinced of. You don't just say, well, I actually believe this, but I'm going to choose to believe something else. It doesn't work like that. So you'd have to be able to give me something that would convince me, and maybe God appearing would, but in some way it'd be nice to have him appear. Now, you said the Bible proves resurrections and all this, and you believe them. Well, let me ask you something. Satya Sai Baba was a famous prophet that traveled around India, and he was doing resurrections all over the place. And there's more evidence to demonstrate that he might have done it than there is for Jesus. My question is, why don't you believe that he did it? Why don't you believe he resurrected? There are thousands. There's more people who adhere and believe that he did these resurrections than you can even pull from the Bible. And yet you, I bet, deny that he did these resurrections. I'd like to know why you accept those and not the ones of Ali Baba. Go ahead.
All right. That was a 5-minute rebuttal. And Stephen, I believe, and if you correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, but Stephen gets 5 minutes to respond to that. And then after that, we have our 30-minute open live discussion, and then we'll get to Q&A. Did you guys agree to that?
That's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Just to let you guys know, those of you guys in the comment section, if you guys want to go ahead and post your questions or your challenges, go ahead and do so, and I will save them. And you can always come back. I understand that, sometimes you have questions and challenges and you want to get to them. So go ahead and shoot them in the comment section, and I'll go ahead and post them right after the open live discussion. Okay, Steve, whenever you're ready, just let me know, and I will go ahead and set the timer.
Okay, as far as the definition of what atheism, yeah, you've got your own. And Hitchens and everyone else will sit there and tell you, yeah, that's the problem. Atheists define it different ways according to their experience and what they want. And like I said, yeah, you dismiss the Bible. There's nothing there. Anything it say is just all myth and everything else. But I also saw your, if you remember correctly, your little discussion with Tristan and your two other buddies there, and I heard your arguments. I saw what you were doing. I saw that. I'm trying to read my own notes here. God created outside. You living inside of creation, the universe, and I would argue that God lives outside of time, space, and matter. If he created, he's bigger than it. He's not controlled by it. He doesn't live under it. He's not living inside of it. Yes, he chooses to come in and out, but past the last couple of things that you said real quick. I can't read my notes. I wrote it down so fast. As far as the resurrection and everything else, that guy you brought up in resurrection, you better believe, I believe that other people have performed resurrection. I believe other people can speak in tongues of Hindus and everything. I believe in the fake. I know that there's a fake. So you can't sit there and say, why is it not God? Well, Jesus attested to God. He said, if you've seen me, you have seen the Father. All the scripture right there. That's all points to that. That's what informs me of the truth. Now, if I wanted to really prove it to you, it has to be from experience, and it has to be from the supernatural experience. So have I seen the blind see? I haven't seen the dead raised yet. I have seen the lame walk. The deaf speak, the blind see. I've seen so many of those miracles. I've seen people healed with cancer, verified by doctors and verified by established things. So, and then not only that, I have seen countless lives changed. And if you look at every example in the Bible, these guys, quote unquote, who wrote a myth did a pretty good job, because what did they do? How were they proved? Yes, it was God who showed up and proved himself to them. Moses, the burning bush, Abraham, several times God showed up and talked with them. Paul, he even showed up to Paul and proved himself to you. I don't see God ever showing up a whole group of people other than Jesus himself who came. But see, again, it's all myth to you. Everything is all myth. So it doesn't matter what kind of evidence that you could, I don't know. They could perform miracles. They could raise the dead. They could do all of those things. But you will sit there and say, that's not good enough for you. But see, the point is you want the evidence. And God himself is the one that said, I'm not giving you the evidence. You want me? Forget the evidence. Believe that I am and come to me and I will prove myself to you. I will do it. So I can sit there and question, what was it about your Christianity that you held on to it for so long? You didn't have evidence back then. So why did you abandon? What was it that somebody said or something did that caused you to abandon your Christian? Now, I've heard your testimony. I heard what you said about why you did it. And partially it was because of what? You couldn't accept the fact that you were a sinner, that God said that you were a sinner. And I made the comment, by grace are you saved through faith, right? No, I didn't say that. I said, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. We have to come into him in belief. And you guys ridiculed it. You ridiculed it. Because it's not about your pride and ego that he has to come and prove to you. He's asking you to look around at this creation in this world and go, my gosh, who did this? All the perfection that's in this world, who did this?
All right. Well, that pretty much sums it up. There was only about 5 seconds left. And so at this time, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't submitted your challenges, your questions to either parties, right now is the time to do so. So right now we're going to do our 30 minutes of open live discussion. And this is what I like to call the cream of the Oreo. This is where the rubber meets the road, where you guys finally get to have an open live freestyle discussion. And we're experienced in this. So you guys, let's keep it fair, keep it clean, keep it appropriate as we know how, as we've been doing. And by all means, gentlemen, have the floor. And I will set the timer in 3, 2, and 1. Who would like to, whoever, go first?
Go ahead, Alan.
You mind? Okay. So let me start with a simple thing. So I'm just curious. You said you do believe in current day resurrections?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry that I said you wouldn't, because as
I've heard of it happening in different countries, for different reasons. Sure.
Okay. So you are a full preterist, though, right?
Okay. We're glitching, right? You guys, sometimes I'm stopping and freezing.
Yeah,
happening?
Yeah, it's happening, but it's okay.
Okay, all right, because it just happened there with you, Alan.
Yeah, there's nothing we can do about it. It's just connection, so we'll just go through with
all
it.
Right.
If you need a repeat for whatever, just
repeat that, Alan.
Sure. I was just asking. I was curious because you're also a full preterist.
Yeah, go ahead, repeat that.
You are a full preterist, right?
No.
Oh,
no.
Well, that explains that. For some reason, I thought you were. All right, cool.
No.
Well, that explains why you would still believe in resurrections. Well, at least you're consistent. So what makes you think that the claims of experiences with what you would call the true God can be valid and true, but me making a claim the exact opposite cannot be true?
If I met the president, well, that's maybe not a good idea. But I met the president. I told you I met the president, and you never met the president. No, I don't have a picture. I don't have this, but I met him. But I don't have what you would see. My word, it wouldn't be. My word wouldn't be good enough. Even if it was 20 people who sat there and said, "Okay, would that be good enough evidence?" We all said, "Hey, Steve did." My mind went off another direction there real quick, but Ask it one more time. Just one more time for me.
I'm just trying to understand why the claims in the affirmative of God experiences can be true, but the claims against it cannot.
Because if, well, it's like what Hitchens did in one of his things. He made the argument and went all the way through the assumption of that this world is corrupted, it's evil and everything else. And if a loving God created this world and everything else, so corrupted and everything else, what kind of God is he? Well, you're forgetting that God created the world perfect and it was cursed because of what man did. He doesn't have that fact. That's not entered into his thinking. That's not something he can grasp. And so when it comes to experiences and things like this, the experiences I've had, all I can do is this is what I've seen happen. And not necessarily can I prove that those things happen too, but those things were not for me. They were not for the other people. They were for that person. And so God shows up when he wants to and how he wants to, and whatever way he's going to do it, he can do it. Burning bush, or as a person walking, out of the middle of a desert. But once he does prove it, there's no going back. There's no going back on that. You can't say, I'm sorry, I didn't believe that. I didn't see. No, I really didn't see a burning bush. That really didn't happen. That was just a figment of my imagination. I mean, I saw somebody in a wheelchair, get up and walk in the name of Jesus, but that's not really real. And so that happens over in India. Well, okay, what are both pointing to? Does one point to Christ and the other one does not? Well, if Christ is all truth and something doesn't point to Christ, then it's the fake. I mean, that's real simple because there is only one God.
But that's also a claim. You're just claiming that because that Christ is true, and therefore your claims about Christ must be true, and everybody else's is wrong. You're just continuing to mount claims upon each other. Like if I say I worship
based on the evidence.
What evidence?
Of what I've seen happen in the name of Jesus.
Circular, Stephen. That's circular. I've seen it happen, therefore it's true, and the evidence says it's true because Jesus is real.
All right. So a blind man is healed, and now he sees, and he goes, "Jesus healed me."
Okay, and also a blind man sees, and he says, "Vision healed me."
Do I believe him or do I dismiss him? Okay. So, yeah. Do they? That would be the point. I don't hear Buddhists, Hindus, or anything else make the same claims that God does, that Jesus made. I don't see any of the claims. Muhammad.
Satya Baba was not resurrecting people in the name of Jesus, bro.
Right, we know.
And yet you believe he did those resurrections? And you believe he did those resurrections?
Who's he doing it?
What's that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whose power is it? Whose power?
It wasn't.
There had to be some other power. Okay. You're breaking up a little bit. There had to be some kind of other power in another world that did it. There's no man that has the power to raise a person from the dead. It's impossible for me or anybody else to go, okay, you're dead. Come on, back to life. Here we go.
You're exactly right. It's impossible.
It has to be a power outside that something that has the. Okay, so something, in order for it to happen, it has to be a power that's greater than death.
Correct. It doesn't exist. That's why this doesn't happen.
Oh, so you're saying those claims to people in India or whatever, whoever it is, he makes claims of resurrection. You're saying that's all false too. It never happened.
Correct.
Is that what you're? Oh, okay. I get you. So it's impossible for any miracle to happen whatsoever, whether it's God, Muhammad, Buddha, or whoever it would be, correct?
Well, I mean,
is that what you're saying?
First of all, I would make sure that we are on the same page with defining the term miracle. because a lot of people use miracle loosely, like, oh, I stopped drinking and I was a heavy drinker. It was a miracle. Okay, if you're using miracle like that, sure, they exist. But if you mean something that requires supernatural interference and it goes against the uniformity of nature, then no, they don't happen. There's no way to test that they happen. All we have is people making claims that they happen, but there's no evidence that it has. Let me ask you something. If these miracles actually do take place on a regular basis, then why can we never get a single piece of evidence to verify it? It's always based on claims, and we just have to trust people.
Because it's not based in claims. I went down to Mexico on a missions trip, and we were in a barrio. And okay, this is my claim, right? Because I saw it with my own eyes. We showed the Jesus film, and afterwards we started praying for people to accept Jesus, and they started asking, can Jesus heal me? Woman that's been blind. She's been blind all her life. She comes up, can God heal me? Because in the movie, God healed the blind. Yeah, we can. We put our hands on her in the name of Jesus, be healed. The woman opens her eyes and she's looking around. She starts seeing things. She starts seeing people. And then she's going, my daughter, this is my daughter who I've never. She's the one who sat there and said, I can now see. The people around her said, this is my mother. She has never been able to see. Or this man was lame. He couldn't walk. His spinal cord was broken or something. Now he's walking. This man was deaf. Now he can hear. He's responding to people. I see those with my own eyes. Those are not claims for you. That was something that God did for those.
I'm not going to say that you're a liar, obviously.
That was the supernatural. I witnessed it. I saw it.
I'm not going to say you're a liar, obviously, because you believe you saw something. And I'm not going to say you didn't. I'm not going to say you didn't have an experience. You were probably genuine in what you remember. But there's two things I'd like to say. Number one, you can be genuine and genuinely wrong. And number two, there is such a thing known as reconsolidated memory. It's like a fish story. It rewrites itself over and over again so that the original experience is nothing like we remember it, because we remember it in a way that we wished it happened. And so we keep rewriting it and rewriting it. By the time we're telling the story in a debate in 2026, it's a real miracle and somebody became healed from blindness.
Yeah. And I can bring 20 people that were there who saw it all happen. Okay. But see, you just proved my point. You're clinging to the 1% possibility that it didn't happen versus the 99% probability that it did, because of not just one person, but the claims of other people, include the person who saw it. And you dismissed both of those things as either my perceptions, my this, my that. And yet, if I've seen it happen time and time and time again, different types of miracles like that. But you say, oh, well, that probably just, no. What's the probability that it is that, give it a rough number, 16, 17 people were healed at that one point. And I've been to another service, or and these, I saw it took 16 more times. What are the probability that I didn't remember that now 32, 100 times that I've seen and witnessed it, and then I've got it all screwed up in mind? The probability is 0 or maybe 1% that I did that. But the probability that it happened is much greater. And so you have the witness of 2,000 years of people testifying to lives being changed because of Jesus. Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam has never changed a person ever. But these people, Christ changed me. They've changed my life. They've healed me. They've done what they want. Those aren't claims.
So you're, first of all, when you're talking in terms of probability and percentages, you're actually in the fields of science, not myth and miracles. So when you're talking about probabilities, you switched them entirely. The chances of that happening are actually less than 1%, probably 0 in probability, because the probability of it happening is of not happening is 99%.
Of what happened?
Because scientifically speaking, those things don't happen. So there's a 99% or greater chance that it didn't happen the way you remember it. I guarantee you, and here's my beef. My beef is that you are remembering these experiences that you have, and you're filtering them through the lens of a religion or a belief that you already have that God does these things. And so you're recalling them in ways that you wish to recall them. Now, let's grant for the sake of argument that your explanation is one possibility. Okay, great. It could have been a miracle, all of these. Alternatively, there could be 10 other scientific explanations as to what actually happened that day. And you would have to grant that there are other possible explanations. You even gave me 1%. So I'll take that 1% for a moment and I'll say there's 1% chance that it could be something else, Stephen. You even granted that. Why should we accept that it's your explanation versus any of the other possible explanations when yours requires miracles which are outside the realm of reality and has no evidence to demonstrate it? All we have here is your word. That's not good enough. We need
because it's not just it's just not my word. It was those that were there.
That's what Paul did with the resurrection. It's all these other people. Show me this. Call one of these other people right now. Let's talk to them.
Paul saw the resurrected Jesus. There's the difference.
No, he
Jesus died. He saw him alive and well and standing. Even Stephen saw him up in heaven. Yeah. So yeah, Paul did. Yeah, that would be.
When you start seeing things in heaven, that's just a little weird. I don't know that I trust that person's actual testimony.
I know, because the Bible is full of all those things, like Elijah getting caught up into a whirlwind and Elisha seeing it happen.
Let me ask you something. If you never had the Bible, if there was no such thing as the Bible, do you think you would believe all of this?
I forgot what kind of argument you would call that. If there was no Bible, I seem to recall that people believed that for the first 100 years without ever having a Bible. Well, actually, 100 years before the Bible was actually even put together. All they had were letters written by some man who was a Jew who went around killing people because they believed in Christ. And he makes the claim, and he testified in court that he was going off to kill people. And all of a sudden he got struck down blind, and God talked to him and he saw Jesus, and it changed his life. He was blind. He went back to the house in Cornelius, and he was healed and went back and started serving Jesus. His whole life was radically changed. Can I show you a lot of people whose lives were radically changed? Oh yeah, you can. I can. My own life was.
Dude, I can tell you
radically about changed. A lot of people's lives I didn't grow up a Christian.
That had nothing to do with Jesus. People's lives get radically changed every day because they make adjustments in life. It has nothing to do with Jesus. But if you're convinced it's about Jesus, because you're in a crowd of people that are hyping up, that's what you're going to think it is.
Alcoholics can't stop being alcoholics in a moment. Drug addicts don't quit being drug addicts in just 5 minutes.
Dude, you're absolutely wrong about these stats. Absolutely wrong. Have you ever heard of Alan Carr's Easy Way? People are quitting instantly from all of these addictions just like that, because he has realized how to deconvert, how to stop people, the psychological brainwashing that makes them think they need the addiction. Dude, you're way off on that.
Oh boy.
What you have here is not genuine belief. It's psychological addiction. You're trapped by a psychology that makes you think you need just God because you're an evil, wicked sinner without him.
No. It's because I've encountered it. It's changed my life. It wasn't some psychosomatic thing. He changed my father's life. And plenty other people that I've seen over the years in ministry, I've seen lives change because of what Jesus does, not psychosomatic things and things like this.
Okay, I want to roll with this.
I never said that psychosomatic things don't happen.
Let's dance around here for a minute, Steve. Let's dance around here so let me grant you. Let's just go down this road for a minute. Let me grant you that you've had a genuine experience with God. You know he exists because he has whatever talked to you. I don't care how he's done it. You know, it's 100%. You know, I want you to tell me how I can know, because apparently it's not going to be through evidence. And I can't somehow make up faith and just create this conviction in me that suddenly says I just decide to believe in God, because clearly I don't. So I want to ask you, how do I come to know this God? And you said earlier that I was a Christian once and I left for whatever reasons. And you said you never had the evidence then, Alan. So why were you a Christian? Funny you said that, because that's part of why I woke up, because I realized there is no evidence. What the hell am I doing? So I just kind of said faith is ridiculous and I walked away. But here I am. And since then, I have been seeking evidence, because I got to tell you, man, 42 years of my life, man, 42. It wasn't a trick. It wasn't some joke. It wasn't some moment where I was like, ha, everybody, I got you. After 42 years of life, I'm going to be an atheist and start over from scratch and lose everything. Trust me, that wasn't my plan. I was genuine. I was in it. And then I woke up and said, this is absurd. But I wasn't angry at God. I'm still not angry at God. I don't believe God exists, so I can't be angry at him. This has never been about anger. It's never been about trying to pursue sin. It was literally just one day I just said, what am I doing? This doesn't make sense. And faith just disappeared from me. But my question is, since then, I have been talking to people and I've been interested in knowing, if God does exist, how can I find him? Because after 42 years, boy, I got to tell you, it sure would be nice to know that I didn't spend the first 42 years of my life in a lie. Please tell me, how do I find God, Stephen?
Give up the idea that you're looking for evidence, that you need evidence in order to believe. You don't need the evidence to believe. You have creation all the way around you. You know that there's a force out there greater in order for this creation to be, and you know that there was a God that did that. You are simply refusing to accept that. That's the bottom line.
So what you're telling me...
Quit looking for the evidence.
So what you're telling me is the God of logic, the God of reason, the God of evidence put us here so that we would turn our brains off to it and just mindlessly trust him. That's what you're telling me?
Yeah, because science and everything in says it is impossible for the dead to rise and come back to life. It's impossible, but it happened. 500 men witnessed it. Oh, but that's just a myth. No, 500 men saw it. You can't prove it was a myth. You can't prove that they didn't see it. You can't prove that the stories are all myth. There's nothing. That's your conclusion you've come to as far as the Bible is. So you've dismissed all of that. All the evidence that God could put into your hands, you've dismissed it. So you've got nothing but yourself and him and all of that. And so now you insist that God gives you the evidence. And what was his response to those people all the way through? I'm not here to prove evidence. I'm not here to give you evidence. Jesus resurrected from the dead. Do you believe that? 500 men, 12 apostles. Yes, we believe it. We've seen it. We saw you before. We saw you afterwards. And we're telling the whole world. And because of it, and not because it was a lie, because it was the truth, it changed this world. It changed the life of people around them. There's the only evidence that you can get is wow. But you would prefer to believe that, well, all of those thousands of people, the probability is that it was their own mind psychosis, it was their own thoughts and ideas, and this, that, and the other. You will do everything but say, no, that was God. There's a possibility there's God. Okay, if there was a possibility of God, then okay, God, I need you to prove that to me. And that's what you're saying? Okay, let go of the evidence. Let go of the evidence. You God, you have to be out there. I don't know how to connect with you. I don't know or anything. And God is going to say, okay, I'll connect with you. When I'm ready and all that, I'm going to connect with you at the right time. Because Alan, I personally believe that you're going through all of this because you've allowed certain things in and everything else. And God is going to take you to a point where he's going to say, are you done running? Are you done playing the games? I'm right here. I've been here the whole time. You decided whose voice was that you were listening to. It wasn't yours. It wasn't from me. What voice was it? There's an enemy out there, and you know all about the enemy who fakes things, lies things. He does everything he can, all the arguments, all of that stuff. And God says, hey, yeah, who are you going to believe, me or him?
All right. So I'm glad to hear you admit that it's entirely faith-based. There's no evidence for the existence of God. And the entire thing is, if you're going to find him, you've got to eliminate your brain and just mindlessly fall on faith. Glad you admitted that, because that is something I've been arguing for a long time. I believe faith is a mind virus, and it's what causes people to believe things in the supernatural. So that's the first thing.
Yeah, and as long as you believe that, God's never going to prove himself to you.
Okay, well, and
you have to come to him first in faith. And so I've been a Christian for over some 40-some years. The things that I've seen, the things that I've heard, the things that I understand, and everything about what I've seen God do in my life, and the miracles and the things that have happened, I no longer operate faith. To me, God and Christ is just as real as you are. Even though I can't see him, I know he's real.
Yes, and there's all right. So
but that's just a mind delusion, right?
No, well, okay. So I don't know how much of my opening statement you heard, but I
didn't hear any of it.
Okay, so that's a real bummer, because I actually dealt with a lot of this in there. So many things I want to say to all the stuff you just said. It's just give me a minute to try to get it all out. First thing is, okay, so I would love to know if God does exist, and if he would somehow make it evident to me. You're saying shut my brain off and just, I don't know how you shut your brain off and just mindlessly have faith and land, luckily, in faith in the right God. Like, I don't know how you do that.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? Let me interrupt you for 1 second. When I was probably about 10 years old, I went to a church and somebody said, hey, anybody here want to accept Christ? Come on down. Oh, okay. That sounds good. So I go down there. What am I doing here? I don't know. I don't believe. Oh, okay. Hi. Yeah. Okay. Oh, welcome to the family. Now you're Christian. And I walked away and had no concept of what that meant or anything else. And I went on living my life. And then it was Dad. Finally, I saw him go down. Now I'm a little bit older and a little bit understanding. I spent the first 4 or 5 years of my quote unquote Christian life watching my father, watching other people live it. Are they being true? Is this really working? Does this really happen? Does all of these things really take place? And I had to sit there and say to myself, yes, something is going here. I don't understand. But I understand, and I see that God changes lives. I see God perform miracles. I see God do those things. They're claiming it's God. Okay, God, I believe that you're there. I don't understand it. I don't have the evidence. I don't have this or that. But I see the effect of what you have on people and on this world. And the probability that all of these things are happening are mindless mental assertions and biology and everything else is impossible. If I take a watch, put it into 50,000 pieces, put it in a box and shake it, how long do you think that'll take before every piece comes back together again and the watch starts working again? The probability is infinitesimal that it would ever happen. But probability of all of these people being changed, all of these things happening are much greater. Okay, God, I don't understand it all, but I'll come to you. And it was God then who said, okay, this is where we start. I'm here. Now you watch me. And I've watched him from that point forward. I was 13 years old when my father had a heart attack. I had been messing around doing things I wasn't supposed to all day long. But my dad was having a heart attack. I was living with my uncle. I was worried, but I'm still a kid. And I came back home. And for some reason, my uncle was a pastor. I picked up the Bible and I just flipped it open to Psalms 125. As the Lord surrounds Jerusalem, I will surround my people forever. And I heard a voice clearly say to me, that's for you. I promise that I will always be with you. Changed my life. I never ran around saying, oh, God, talk to me or anything else like this. I have no clue what that really meant. But something inside me said, wow, okay. And I watched what God did from that point forward. And yeah, you call it mindless because you can't explain how somebody can be resurrected. It's impossible for it to happen.
Well, I don't
that's what Paul argued, but Paul died willing to stand up and say, I saw the resurrected Jesus.
Can I say something? My turn yet?
Oh yeah, sure. I'm sorry.
How much time do I have, Tristan? Like a minute?
No, as a matter of fact, we have 2 minutes left.
All right. Boy, you had a lot. Boy, okay. So if somehow God were, it's so confusing how I'm even to, like you said, turn your mind off, and then you said it's not.
No, I never said turn your mind off. I never said that. I said quit looking for the evidence,
which is a mindless pursuit of God. So I'm not supposed to have evidence. I'm not supposed to use evidence to arrive at God. I'm just supposed to just say, hey, I believe, which doesn't even compute because you can't just force yourself to believe. God would have to do something amazing to make me see him and believe him. But even if on the chance that God were to reveal himself to me and I would discover finally that he was real, I got to tell you, I certainly wouldn't worship him. He would have a lot to answer for because the Bible is an evil book. He has done so many atrocities. He has allowed for so many things, and not only allowed, but commanded and condoned it, that even if he was real, I would never want to be with him. So my desire, so I would still be doing the same thing that I'm doing on my YouTube channel or whatever. The only difference is I would say, hey, God exists, but hey, stay away from him because he's an awful dude. So I'm sorry that he changed your life and tricked you into worshiping him because he is not a good God. But unfortunately, that's what happened to you. But there is no reason for anybody to make decisions based on faith. Do you know why you have to leave out the evidence and just have faith to turn to God? Do you know why that is? It's because there is no other method by which we can find the supernatural. It's this created thing called faith. And as I expressed in my opening, there is no way that faith can be used as a means to validate anything because every claim is equally valid by faith. You can take anything on faith. Is there anything, Stephen, that you cannot take on faith?
Oh, time, you guys.
In what way?
Time, you guys. The timer went off. It's been 30 minutes. We're going to have plenty of time, you guys, during the Q&A to get back and forth. But, Stephen, did you want to go ahead and answer that, or what Alan asked, and then we can go ahead and transition to the Q&A?
It takes faith to sit in a chair. But the experience is this chair has held me, and I've sat in before, so I sit in the chair believing that it's still going to hold me and not fall apart. So the evidence is there. I sat in it before. Or the idea that somebody made the chair and probably already tested it out, and I'm sitting on it, and I have the faith that it won't fall apart.
Yes, you clearly did not hear my opening.
No, I didn't.
Yes,
nope.
Faith and trust are not the same thing, bro. And I'm sorry that you've been deceived into thinking they are.
Faith and trust are the same thing?
Are not the same thing.
Yeah, no, I know that they're not. Faith,
what you're describing is trust, because trust has evidence.
Faith is to believe something that is impossible.
Trust is what you're describing. Trust is what you're describing when you're talking about sitting in a chair, not faith. They are entirely different. Trust has evidence to back it. Faith just believes without anything.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
Okay, let's get to the Q&A.
I'm looking at it from your point of view. Yeah, you could. I can see what you're saying there. But see, I start with the fact that I look at all the creation, the trees, the sun, the moon, the stars, the planets, and I go, that just didn't happen to be there. That just didn't all of a sudden just happen. There had to be a cause. There has to be a reason. What's the cause? What's the reason? What's the purpose for all of this being there?
All right, let's get to the Q&A. Here we have Deconverted Man. Question for Stephen. If I claim that I am God and have people agree with me, then refuse to show you any evidence of my godhood, would I be giving you any reason to accept my claim? Go ahead, Stephen.
In order to be God means you're infinite. You're not finite. In order for you to be God, that means you had no beginning and you had no end. So you had no beginning. So you're standing here before me and you say, I am God. It's one simple question. Have you always existed through all of time? Outside of time, even? Have you always existed? Did you see everything that's ever happened in this world? And if you tell me no, well, then you're not a God. Sorry. Do you have all power? Do you have all knowledge? Do you know, for example, elephants on that side of the world when they died? Were you there when they died? Did you see them die? Or did you see when that person was calling out to God and you answered him? So no, you can claim anything you want to.
Tristan, are we doing responses or no?
Yeah, no, Alan, go ahead.
So,
you can touch on this question as well. Both parties. Yeah, whoever it's directed to, that's fine, but both parties get to touch on the question.
Okay, so my answer, the way Stephen responded, I would say that he's just making up, he's just got a God of his own making. All these definitions of what makes a God are his definitions of God. And maybe he pulled them from a book, or maybe he didn't, because I know a lot of people that pull from the same supposed book that he does, and you all disagree on what this God is like. So, I mean, my cat thinks it's God, and it very well may be. In fact, we don't know. Maybe cats are gods, and maybe that's why the world exists the way it does, and they all walk around like, waiting for us to do whatever we do with them. But your definition of a God, and really, the real problem is, why does it even matter? Because where did we get this idea that the only option is a God? I've already expressed this. Like, we don't know what the laws were like before the universe existed. What you have is a bunch of definitions of a God outside the laws of nature. And I'm saying, if that God can exist with different laws outside of this universe, why can't something else that doesn't match the laws of this universe have existed forever and brought this into being? Why must it be God? Well, because you had an experience. Okay, well, I can't argue with your experience. So that's my answer.
No, you have no other answer. God is outside of it. So there's, that's it. That's what God is.
Let's go ahead and get to the next question from Lily. Does Alan believe in objective truth?
Yes and no. If by objective you mean that there's some infinite standard,
good question,
that it's always the same, no, I don't. But I believe truth becomes objective subjectively. In other words, let me equate it to, say, there's Super Bowls going on right now. Is it? Yeah, it's already started. So at the end of this year, very likely, like they do many years, they're going to modify the rules for next year. And then when the season starts, those rules become objective. They don't change throughout the season. They're held to a standard, and everybody plays by the same rules. That is an objective standard. It's objective rules. But they are subjective until they are agreed upon and made objective. So I think every society, every culture, even my wife and I, we have our own objective standards that we have subjectively agreed upon. You may have yours with your husband, and Stephen may have his with his. You're married, right, Stephen?
Oh, yeah.
With his wife. Okay, I didn't want to misstate that. So they may be different from marriage to marriage, but they are subjective, but then they become objective because they're agreed upon. So that's the way I would define it. And I think when it comes to morality, because I know this is where it's driving, objective truth and morality, morality is an essential element for our survival as a species. Without us agreeing to certain terms that we're going to, create the maximum benefit and the least possible harm for one another, we're never going to survive. So it's an absolute necessity for us to subjectively agree to objective terms so that we can hold one another accountable and make sure that we survive and become the best we can be. So that's the way I would answer that.
Stephen, go ahead. You could touch on that one too, about his response.
No, yeah.
No, you don't want to address it?
No. I'm just thinking here. Of course, there's objective truth. I exist. There's an objective truth that's not subjected to anybody else. Objective truth is that, like he said, what we do with each other. But the idea is a society decides, oh, we all get together. We've all decided it's okay to rape little girls. You could say that all you want to. Society can agree to that all that they want to, and it becomes subjective to the society that they say it's okay to do this. But inside you, without anybody telling you, that's wrong. It's wrong for incest. It's wrong for rape. It's wrong for pedophiles. Even you, Tristan, know that. Period. That's an objective truth. And it doesn't matter if society says it's okay or not. You will still know that's wrong.
Yes. And that's why we have the laws that we do, because clearly those are necessary for us to survive as a species and thrive.
No, you didn't hear me. I don't think you heard me.
But
if all of society agreed that it's okay to rape little girls, and they do it every time they want to all the way around, you're now saying that's a subjective to the society, and now it's okay. It's okay to do it because everybody said it's okay to do it.
Yes, but nobody.
We've all agreed it's
a society wouldn't do that at large, because if they did, they wouldn't survive.
Okay, our society says it's okay to kill babies, and we're doing it all the time.
No, we're not. We don't.
It's called abortion. That's murder.
Well, you think what you want, but that's not murder.
I know.
Let me ask
but
you something.
That's the thing. You call it objective, but okay. I had a 7-month-old baby. I had a 7-month-old baby that died. I know. Abortion is wrong.
Let me ask you something. When you go to the hospital and somebody is going to die unless you donate an organ, are you committing murder if you choose not to donate your organ?
Well, you've narrowed it down to think that only I can do it, and the parameters of that question is absolutely ludicrous.
Okay.
But would I lay down my life for somebody in order to save them if I could? Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would. Because
all right,
that's the value I put in other.
That wasn't my question, by the way. My question is, would it be morally wrong if you chose not to?
Oh, that to me, if you were something you could do, yeah, and you didn't do it, yeah, that would be morally wrong.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We have a question for Stephen. This is coming from Barry Isaacs from our Facebook group, Preterist Perspectives, Discussions, and Debate. He has a question for you, Stephen. Aside from the Bible, what proof/evidence do you have for the God of the Bible, Yahweh? So aside from the Bible, what proof and evidence do you have?
Well, Stephen doesn't use evidence. So what's the point of this question?
No, I didn't say I didn't use. I've tried to sit to tell you the evidences of people's lives being changed. There's your evidence. There's your effect. The wind blows, the tree moves. God heals, and a person is healed, and he walks on from that. So, do I have evidence in the sense that I can sit there and claim that the Bible and all the claims that everything that's said about that and everything else makes it all true? Again, the probabilities of it working the way it does, if it was not from God, meaning, well, let's put it this way. If it was just a bunch of man-made stuff that missed and everything else, then nothing would work. Nothing would be true. I could do this, that, and the other, and it wouldn't for me. Wouldn't work. But if it works, then that to me proves that there's some truth in it, that because it works. And because I've read the Bible, I see the evidence of those things happening and being true now. That's what leads me to believe that it's the God of the Bible.
Stephen, have you ever seen the effects of the wind?
If he healed the blind,
the
lame walk. Have I ever seen the wind?
Have you ever seen the effects of the wind?
Is that what you said?
Have you ever seen the effects of the wind?
Yes.
So have I. You know what I've never seen?
What?
The effects of God.
I know.
So that analogy doesn't work, man, because both of us have seen the effects of the wind, as has everybody. But to just say
no. You have seen the effects of God. You're
because I can actually tell you that the effects
denying
of wind,
it.
I can actually tell you the effects of wind are caused by wind. I have no reason to deny that. You know what I do have a reason to deny? The existence of God.
Right.
Because there's no proof that he actually does anything.
Right.
Okay,
but when I see
right.
No, that's what you think. When I've seen a blind person now see, the blind see, the lame walk, the deaf hear, I no longer I know it's true because I saw him do it. I saw it happen. I saw it happen. I believe in what I saw based on the evidence of what those people said, the relatives said, and what everybody said. This person was blind. Now they can see. Can you prove to me you can see? Sure, I can see. Can you prove to me you were blind? No, because I didn't know you beforehand. Okay, so you're the mother, you're the father, the brother and sister. Was this person blind for the last 20 years? Yes, this person was blind for the last 20 years. What's the purpose and the reason for lying about it? Oh, there is none. I prayed to Jesus and now I can see. Okay, I believe it. There's no reason for me not to believe it. Therefore, I can put my trust in somebody who says he's going to do what he's going to do and has the power to do what he says he can do.
I got a question for Alan here. What the Bible does that mean? To Alan, out of nothing, nothing comes. In the absence of a divine creator, what plausible explanation can be offered for the origin of existence? Have your liberty, Alan.
Well, there are actually lots of plausible explanations that science is working on and presenting as possibilities, but there are none that anybody is landing on saying definitively no, because you just can't. And even Christians know, I think, if you're being honest, that you can't just know it's God. You're guessing and you're hoping it's God. You're just throwing your faith at it. There's no way to actually know it's God. What we do know is that Planck time began time. That's as far back as we go. And we know that from there, that's the singularity. And from there, it's just expanded and then life started. What we don't know is what brought that about. What started this? What's the singularity? Where does that come from? One theory, or I shouldn't even call it a theory because that's more of a religious term when it's just a loosely held thing, but the one proposition, one possibility, and it's the one that I personally favor currently. And again, I'm not saying I know this because I don't know this. I'm no scientist either, so I'm just guessing. But one of my favorites is that energy has always existed. And the thing about it is that we know that energy in this universe reaches entropy. And so it couldn't have eternally existed in the same form that it exists in this universe. But if God can exist outside of this universe and have different laws that allow him to be infinite and eternal, why can't energy outside of this universe? And that it becomes what it is in this universe. So if it existed forever, I know the great thing is, well, what are the chances that it would suddenly start expanding and do all this? 1 in a million. Okay. But if you have eternity and you go around a million times, what are the chances that eventually that 1 in a million isn't just a probability anymore, but it's a definite reality? Because going around that many times, you're gonna hit it eventually. So if energy did exist forever and it comes around to that 1 in a million time, boom, you got the singularity. I see no reason why that isn't a really genuine, plausible option. But the reason we can't say it's the dogmatic God's honest truth is because we just don't know. Could be multiverses forever expanding. Who knows?
So, like I said, you've got the majority of people in this world who believe God created the heavens and the earth. The probability of so many people believing that versus this small percentage of people that think, well, probably we got a 1%, this could have happened to that. You just entered into the realm. You just answered the argument. You would prefer to hold on to that 1% argument that some people hold to and ignore and tell everybody else, the other 95 people, God doesn't exist.
All right. First of all, you're appealing to popularity, which is a logical fallacy. So that has no bearing on the answer. Who cares?
Probability. The probability that 1,000 people will sit there.
It doesn't matter. The probability. Here's the problem with what you're arguing anyway. Even if
you just did it, though, you just brought up probability.
Even if the probability, this and that, the point is, I'm not rejecting any option. I'm not saying God isn't an option. I'm saying to land on it and say, I know affirmatively that God is absolutely disingenuous, because you have no reason to land on an option that you don't know is true.
All right, let's go ahead and get to the next question. Looks like we have another one from. Let me see here. Here's another one from Barry Isaacs. Question for Stephen: if full preterism helps lead people out of Christianity, why didn't God divinely inspire the Bible to be clear, so that Christians wouldn't have to end up becoming full preterists? In short, why did God make it so that eschatology, lack for better words, is impossible to figure out?
He put in there enough that people can be saved. You can read it and be saved. We have definitely levels of capable, levels of understanding where people are capable of learning and understanding certain things. Others will have a difficult time under quantum mechanics. Some of us don't have a clue about that. We're not educated in that, things we haven't learned and grow. So we're all at different points. And so reading the Bible, what do you understand? What are you learning from that? That doesn't mean you can't learn and grow in that learning and everything else. But it is sufficient. But full preterism doesn't, it's not Christian whatsoever. There's nothing Christian about it. Christianity was defined in what it is, in that first century church. If I was to ask you what are the 5 tenets of Islam, they would sit there and tell you, well, it's this, and this. You have to believe that, or it's not Islam. Christianity goes, you have to believe that Jesus died, resurrected, is coming again, bodily resurrection. Those the creed there, that's outlined. That's so you can sit there and say, this is what, and that is what the essential point is. Those are the things that are essential about Christianity. The things that we divide are the small things. Even eschatology, we can argue about the differences in that. And why we don't understand it is because we don't have the good enough understanding all the way through. There's nobody who has. There's some people that are better at it than other people, but nobody is smart enough to have it all figured out. But we still, it comes to a point where we trust him that it's all going to work out. But when somebody says, this is not true, or this is true, and we can go, clearly, there's no evidence for the Christ to return in 70 AD. There is no evidence whatsoever for that. We can blow it off and saying you're blowing smoke. But the real danger of eschatology and getting it wrong is when you start changing who Christ is. Well, he's no longer man. He's just a spirit up there in heaven. No, he said he dwells as a man. He still is a man, body, soul, and spirit, still a man. You say he's not. Bible says he is. Yes, that's a difference of opinion and everything I'm reading around. And my first thing is, well, how do you come to understand that? Who told you that? Why did you come up with that? Here are the reasons why we disagree. Do you agree on this point, or do you disagree on this point? We come through and we reason it together. Most reasonable people go, oh, I see. I can't believe that and believe this at the same time. Therefore, that's a contradiction. I'll give up the one that doesn't work, and I hold to the one that's true. That's how we work through it all.
Alan, did you touch on that question that was just asked?
No, it's not I don't even believe God wrote the Bible, so I'm not sure how I would even answer that.
Okay. About full preterism, if it helps people lead people out of Christianity.
The Bible is divinely inspired.
Why didn't God just?
It's divinely inspired. It's our level of competence.
Okay. Did you want to touch on anything on this?
I don't believe it's divinely inspired. So why didn't God do it? Because he doesn't exist. I guess that's the answer. But the Bible is, it's a confusing book. Obviously, it's not it's really well written, but it's not coherent all the time. It's got contradictions and it's got challenges that present itself to both sides of the debate. So there's a reason you still got futurists and full preterists and partial preterists, and they're all fighting amongst each other because it's clearly not as clear as everybody thinks. Now, full preterism, in my opinion, I don't know if this is the question, but in my opinion, is the best way to interpret the text. But at the end of the day, it leads you to a place of hopelessness because what you end up having is no actual benefits that take place. Everything is just taken on faith. So what full preterism does is it robs Christianity of all the benefits that supposedly we used to have that could have taken place someday in the future in a physical world. It's gone. So it's like, okay, that's kind of a hopeless theology in my opinion, but there you go.
Yeah, I know we have a whole lot to say about the full preterist theology.
Yeah.
Let's say we have another question here for Stephan. What can we expect? When can we expect to have you bring those 20 people you said would agree with your Mexico story to show up on your channel? You said you could do
that. Let me see. When we never, because I'm not here. I don't have to defend God. I don't have to prove God. God is here to prove himself to you, the person, not me. God wants to do it, he'll do it. You don't need me, my 20 witnesses, or anything else to prove to you. God can do it all by himself when he's good and ready. He's able when he wants to. But the thing is, always, God resists the proud and gives grace to the humble. As long as you put yourself over God in judgment, because like what Alan said, what you said is, how can there be a God when so many evil things and this, that, and the other, and everything else? And what has always been my response is, I'm sorry. I am a finite creature. I am small. A cockroach. I'm like a cockroach trying to understand what man does. I have no understanding of God. What little I have can fill up a thimbleful in an ocean of what God is. I understand maybe a thimbleful. And who am I, the one who was created, to sit there and question him who created me and saying, you don't know what you're doing. I don't like this about you. I don't like you did this. I don't like you did that. Shut up. He loves you. He sent his son to die for you. He get it all settled out. You'll understand it when it comes time for you to understand it. And when it comes time for you to understand it, you're going to look like the biggest fool in the world because you dared to question it.
Alan, do you want to touch on this question?
Yeah. So, first of all, I never said that God doesn't exist because of all the evils in the world. I don't think that's a good argument, honestly. But what I did say was God should be held accountable for all the evils that he's done. That's what I said, if he does actually exist. And
that's your perception. We understand that. That's your perception. You're under lack of understanding. Yes, we know that. Like I said, I think you understand the thimbleful of what God is, and you judge him on based on that, which is nothing.
Yeah, well,
your ways are not his ways. Your thoughts are not his thoughts. You don't even come close, but you dare to question him and tell him he doesn't know what he's doing or he's wrong.
What I can say is that the reason I can judge God for his immoral acts is because I'm more moral than he is. And I don't need a God to be moral. I am absolutely certain that rape is wrong. I'm certain that genocide is wrong. I'm certain that slavery is evil. And I'm certain that child molestation is evil, especially stoning your children to death just for disobedience. All very evil acts. And I've determined that. And I certainly didn't get it from God, because if I did, I'd have a totally different opinion on those things, and I would praise them instead of judge them. I think God should be held accountable. And frankly, he created hell. We should send him there.
All right. We have another question from Richie. He says to Alan, you can't get energy from an infinite amount of universe anymore than you can get water from an infinite amount of glass. Well, this wasn't really a question. It's more like a comment. Did you want to touch on that, Alan?
Sure. And I would say, yes, maybe in this universe. But this is what you all keep seeming to misunderstand is, if God can exist outside of time, space, and matter, and you can just invent him and say, hey, there's a God that must exist forever and be infinite and do, why can't there be some other explanation as well outside of this universe that you're just not opening your mind to because you've already settled on God? If you've already determined that it's God, you will never, ever pursue anything other than that. And therefore, you will never come to the actual truth because you already believe you found it.
It's because inventing something with our own imagination doesn't make it true.
Correct. Thank you.
Right.
And that should end the debate.
So, we're not imagining God. That's the problem. That's the issue. We're not here imagining God. We're sitting there telling you we have felt the effects of God working in our lives, healing people, doing miracles, doing things, and people are saying, he changed my life. There's nobody else that could have done that but God. And you're saying, well, you've made it all up. You've done this, you've done that. That's not true. And you've determined all that.
No.
And so if I was to take you to a church service and somebody was standing up there missing an arm, and all of a sudden we prayed and the arm all of a sudden it appeared and everything else, you would still sit there and say, God, you're so terrible, you're so evil, I will not believe in you because you condone slavery and stoning to death the children, and you condoned all this, and I'm not going to. If you're the God of the Bible, forget it. Nothing to do with you whatsoever. But yet you just saw somebody's arm completely be healed. See?
I certainly would believe that he exists, and I certainly would believe that these things could happen if I actually could experience them or see the evidence for them. But no, I would not ever want to worship a God like the God of the Bible. There's no way. So no, but anyway, that's all I need to say about that.
All right. I think that pretty much sums it up. Oh, we have one more to Alan. True, it is impossible to ascertain the definitive cause of existence. It would seem more logical for Alan to adopt agnosticism rather than atheism. Why does he choose atheism?
I don't choose between the two. I'm actually an agnostic atheist. Atheism speaks to belief. Agnosticism speaks to knowledge. So maybe the best way I could put it is I'm an atheist because I'm an agnostic. So I guess the point is, what I'm saying is, I don't know what exists. I don't know what brought all this to be, and I'm open to all possibilities. I just see no reason to land on God. And what I'm trying to do is just to demonstrate that you have no reason to land on God either, so that we can start working together to figure out what actually did happen instead of pretending like we know. And also because even if that God did exist, I wish nobody would worship him. But anyway, that's beside the point. But because of that agnosticism, therefore, I do not believe a God exists. There is no reason to. That is what leads me to atheism.
It was Richard Dawkins in his final years, after wrestling with creation, God, the whole God delusion, all of it, everything. How is it? Because it was proven speed of light is not constant. It's been proven that the amino acids and nuclei and all of those things could never create life. Life can't just spontaneously happen. I mean, all of those things, he's looked at all of those, and he's supposed to be one of the greatest minds and minds that we've got today. What was his final conclusion of all of it? He said, there's no way life could begin here and all of this. The only way life could have ever began here is if it was seeded by somebody else from a different galaxy. Congratulations. You just stepped into the world of faith.
All right.
but he's too
Question
blind to
for
see it.
Alan. Do you think metaphysical explanations are ever rationally justified, or must all explanations reduce to physical cause?
Well, by metaphysical, if you don't mean supernatural, then yes. I'm not I'm not a materialist. I am a naturalist. So I do think that there are things that we don't see with our eyes or can't test with like physical means. But I do think you can test them nonetheless and use physical means to determine how they work or whatever. So they're still demonstrated through evidence and empirical evidence. But I definitely think metaphysical explanations are fine. I mean, I think the laws we live by are metaphysical. That's the way I would define them as well.
Stephen?
I was reading some of the comments and everything else. Yeah, I believe in the supernatural because I've seen the supernatural, and because I've seen it, I know God exists.
All right. Well, that finishes up the Q&A. Both you gentlemen, thank you so very much for, serving those in the preterist community, those who are interested in this topic. You guys get 10-minute closing. Alan, you did open up, and Stephen, you were following Alan. So, Alan, did you want to go ahead and close and Stephen close after, or did you guys want to switch that up? Stephen close and then Alan close after?
Your call, Steve. Which way do you want to go?
Alan, you can do it. Yeah, since you started, you can do it.
First, okay.
You can close first.
Okay, 10 minutes. Do you need some time? Do you got to?
No,
okay.
Let's go.
Okay, I'll go ahead and begin in 3, 2, and 1. Closing statements.
All right. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to you guys for doing this. Stephen, thank you very much for being gracious and being a part of this. I commend you tremendously for being willing to do this. There's a lot of people that are unwilling to defend their belief in the existence of God, which I find strange. Because if you truly believe this God exists and you have this wonderful relationship with him, part of evangelism is explaining how you find God. So thank you. I don't know why some of these other guys are not willing to do that. So I commend you. Also, for a very delightful discussion. Obviously, we don't see eye to eye, but we didn't expect you coming in. So having this back and forth and the different opinions, they're expected. But I definitely enjoyed this conversation, and I very much appreciate the back and forth that we were able to have. I'm going to focus my time, and if I have some allotted time, I'll go to some of the other stuff again. But on this idea of experiences, because that seems to be where we've landed here. Stephen says, don't look for the evidence, that is the problem. Stop looking for the evidence. And in my mind, when I hear that, I hear just shut your brain off. Stop using empirical data. Stop trying to evaluate anything. Just mindlessly, and I have no other way that I can imagine how this looks, but just kind of like a zombie. Just walk around and bump into things until you just kind of like find God. And I don't understand how that happens. If I'm not supposed to use my mind and my brain to look around and evaluate and study things and determine what's real, then how does God actually appear to me? It would seem that it has to be something he chooses to do, because I'm obviously not going to do it. I can't. I'm incapable, apparently, because either the evidence isn't getting me there, and me mindlessly walking around bumping into things would be like 1,000,000 to 1. So God has to do it. So that tells me if God exists, and Stephen's, believes he does for sure, that tells me God's playing favorites. So God must hate me. And that's very sad that he has chosen not only to take me through 42 years of my life, take himself away from me, put me through a whole new life. I lost everything, had to start over. For what? For what purpose? It seemed absolutely useless and mindless if someday he's just going to turn around and come back to me. This does not really make any sense. Now, of course, the typical Christian answer is, well, because God's shaping you and molding you and he's doing wonderful things in your life. Okay. But the reality is, I believed for 42 years. I was a Christian. I studied his word. I wanted to know him passionately. I believed with every ounce of my being. Did I see miracles? No. But maybe Stephen would say, because you don't believe they happen, so therefore God never revealed them to you. Fine. Fortunately, that's the way things work, because I also don't believe in demons and got lucky then and never saw a demon. So apparently it seems that when you don't believe something, you don't ever see it. And that's the way it seems to be with God. As long as you don't believe, he never appears. If you do believe, suddenly he's everywhere. Wonder why that is. Maybe it's because faith makes you see things that aren't there. That seems to be what's going on with experiences. I have no doubt that Stephan had a lot of experiences. I have other friends that I talk to that have had great experiences too, and they all attribute them to God. People go and they have these moments in holy roller churches, and they're getting smacked in the head, and people are being healed left and right, and they're all attributing it to the Holy Spirit. Everybody has experiences, but there's people in other countries that have experiences, and they attribute it to everything but the Holy Spirit and but God. And so you can have all these experiences, and I have no doubt that you had these experiences. I just doubt that these experiences were with anything in the supernatural. You think they are because you believe this already. You have a preconceived notion that God exists. You've just by faith taken it to be true with no evidence, because apparently you said that's how you find God. You ignore the evidence and you just believe. And if that's the case, then you have just decided that faith is going to be your determining factor for how you evaluate things. And so whenever you have an experience and something great happens, it's a God thing. But the question is, what about all the times that that thing didn't happen? Was that a God thing too? Why is it always a God thing whenever you want it to be a God thing, but then when something else happens, you don't think about it as a God thing? Because maybe you're just making it up as you go along. And it's because that's what you believe to be true. So I think experiences cannot be trusted to determine reality. They are misleading because, number one, we know that how the brain works. It can see things that it wants to see based upon preconceived beliefs. It can be misled to see things to understand things the way it wants to understand things. It can be tricked by other people and the way they explain things. And after a while, you hear it, you're like, oh, yeah, maybe that's what happened. Reconsolidated memory is also a very big scientific fact. We rewrite our memories to remember things differently than they happened, all because of beliefs. All of these things can explain those experiences. Also, God can explain those experiences. I am not denying that God is an option. What I'm denying is that there's any evidence whatsoever to believe that he is. And honestly, it seems to me like all of the scientific evidence demonstrates that all of these other explanations are more likely than God. Maybe it's God, maybe it's not. But at the end of the day, we don't know. You're just guessing. You're just hoping. You're just wishing it's God. You're just already believing it is and fitting everything into that little, you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. That's just what you're doing over and over and over again. So I'd rather just be honest and say, I don't know. Sure, I had an experience with the devil once. At least at the time I thought I did. I was on a mission trip and I was laying in bed. And I swore I felt him grabbing at my feet, scared the bejesus out of me, to the point where I went downstairs and told everybody. And we had a big fasting. It was a teen mission trip. We fasted and prayed because, according to the Bible, that verse that doesn't belong in there, these kind can only be cast out through prayer and fasting. And so we did that. Turns out all I had was an experience with a curtain, a bedspread, and an oscillating fan. And it just made it feel like there was a demon there. Why? Because I believed that Satan existed at the time and was coming to get me because, well, I was trying to praise Jesus in another country, and he wouldn't have that. I didn't realize how important I was to Satan. I was a big deal because out of all the millions of people on the planet, he was after me. I mean, when you start to think about these things and you look back, you're scratching your head and you're saying, wow, I believed that? Why did I believe that? Because I believed God existed and I believed the supernatural realm. And I already had these preconceived ideas that I took on faith. And so they became realities to me. All things that can be explained in so many different ways. In my case, an oscillating fan. In your case, it could be reconsolidated memory. There are just other explanations. And all I'm saying is, while God could be one, why have we just settled? The minute we settle on an answer that we actually don't know for sure is true, we're never going to search for the true answers because we're just going to be determined this one's right. I suggest we settle with I don't know until we do. That is the best approach to life. How much time do I have, Tristan?
You got 1 minute and 40 seconds.
All right. What can I look at here for the minute 40 seconds? Let's see. I guess the last thing I'll say, just to wrap this up, is that morality comes up a lot. It was asked here in the thread tonight. And, morality is actually only possible without a transcendent being. Christianity loves to argue that you have to have God as your objective standard in order to have morals. But the reality is, number one, if in fact there is this objective standard and you're just obeying it, you're not a moral agent. You're just being obedient. And if you're just being obedient, then you're not being moral. So you can't actually claim that you're following morality in any sense. You're just doing what you're told. But secondly, my question is, how did you decide that God is a good objective standard to follow? You made that choice, which means subjectively, a bunch of people decided that this thing is going to be our objective standard, much like we make rules and laws in our country, in our society, and on football fields. We do it exactly the same way that you chose God. It's just you believe there's a God, and so you have to make up this idea that he's some objective standard that we just obey. But in reality, it's not. You literally made the choice to follow that standard. You made him objective.
All right. Looks like you have 10 minutes, Stephen, for your closing arguments. And I will go ahead and begin the timer in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Go ahead, Stephen.
Okay. As we saw my first opening, when I talked about probabilities and arguments, we have no evidence for the existence of God. We have all kinds of arguments, and even Alan has gone back to the probabilities. He rather choose these other probabilities that are smaller ones than the idea that let's say 30 million Christians who have lived since the first century, 3 billion or how many others, he would choose to believe that they were deceived. They're just following this. It's just some mindless thing that they've learned and it just passed on, and there's nothing real about it. Because to him, it's impossible for God to do that. And that's kind of what I question. Why is it impossible for God to prove himself to people? Just because he hasn't to you, or you haven't seen it, why is that impossible for that to happen? And so anybody who claims that God has proven it to himself is just, no, that's not true. You really didn't, because it's impossible. Therefore, it can't happen. I've determined that it cannot happen because it's impossible. And in your realm and the way you work, yes, it's impossible. That's what you accepted. But my first question is what kind of Christian life did you live? And I mean that in a broad sense of, you never saw anything really happen. Everything that you experienced, you say was something made up in your own mind. And so, like I said in the opening, you've determined that's what's true about everybody else all the way through. They've just, because they were raised that way, because they've been told that, because all of these other things, but the probability of it being true doesn't exist, and it can't exist. I kind of find that impossible to happen. Let me see. Yeah. I don't know if there's a disdain for that or whatever, because of who you decided who God is, and what you've decided about him, how he's moral, he's done this and he's done that, and there's nothing consistent about him, nothing right. But yet, you believed all of that was true at one point. And so you've gotten rid of the God delusion at this point. And now, Satan doesn't exist, miracles don't exist. None of those things are possible or true or anything else. And then it goes so against the grain in one sense of me, in the sense of you wanting to pigeonhole my experience to be nothing more than wishful thinking and the way I remembered those stories and everything else, as if you yourself can't remember your own stories, as if, yeah, you fed it through this, you fed it through that and everything else, and you make it up. Now you look back at that, and I'm not even talking about your curtain thing with the devil and all that, but other things that you experienced and everything else. You're coming back and you're saying, well, that was just all made up in my mind. That was just all invented, and because I was conditioned that way and made that way. And so I feel sorry for you. I really do. I really feel bad that so much has happened. And I'm looking around, and this is happening all the way through our society. And it's happening with full preterism, and happened partial preterism. Has become absolutely laughable because people think they understand God, and then sit in judgment of him. And so really, I'm supposed to present evidence, but nothing I can say is be counted as true or worthy of consideration, even, or in the remote possibility that it might be true. It's improbable. It's just all improbable, everything about it, because a few people have determined that it's impossible. And yet, this is what, 2026 years after what? The time of Christ? But it's impossible that Jesus and all those things could have happened, and all of those things could have been true. What makes the difference? Is it the idea that God has chosen certain people? No, I don't. What I've seen, and what I'm seeing by people who reject the truth and make up their stuff, and I mean, from Hymenaeus to Phileus, the resurrection is past. Why do people make it up and make up things like this, and all the disagreements, and stupid people come up, hey, you have to be baptized in Jesus' name only, and if you're not baptized in Jesus' name only, you're not a Christian. So if we are the only ones who teach the truth, you have to come to our church and you have to be baptized in our church, or you're just not saved at all. You're going to hell. And the crapola that goes on and on. There's no end to it. So I sit back and I go, there's nothing anybody can say. There's nothing anybody can do to say that what I've experienced is invalid or something that I made up in my mind. I'm sure of it. I'm firm in it. And I wish there's a lot of other people who would be the same sure. It's like Barry Isaacs. Be sure and firm in what you believe. This wishy-washiness of going back and forth. Double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And so I have no choice but to rely on that. The relationship that I know that I have with God. And nothing can dissuade me. And I'm not even going to, somebody says, oh, you're just this, that, and the other. It comes down to, I feel sorry. Even Judas betrayed him. He walked with Jesus for how long, and he still betrayed him. So it's not any kind of surprise to me whatsoever. Gnosticism was born in the first century. And there were Christians who were deceived and walked away right from the very beginning, who didn't believe. Even though they stood there with them and saw the miracles, they still didn't believe. So if they're not going to believe that, they're not going to believe somebody resurrected from the dead. They're not going to believe that there's nothing true about the Bible. Seriously, then there's nothing that can there's nothing that can convince a person that God exists in that sense of what you're talking about. Yeah, God exists, but I don't. And so I don't. No, I'm not trying to convince anybody. I don't even know that I would try to convince somebody that my experiences are true and right and everything else. I'm secure in what I'm thinking, what I believe, and I know what's happened, what hasn't happened. I didn't make up, blind people seeing and lame people walking again, and the different miracles that I see all the time. I do know that God is good. I don't understand him, but I know he is good. I know he's going to be faithful to keep his word. And I know that I can trust him no matter what happens. What I don't understand, it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. I'm going to keep believing. Call me a fool, call me ignorant, call me whatever you might want to call me, but it's not going to change anything. And so the only thing that I can sit there and say is God's been knocking on that door for a long time. He's done a lot of things, but you've rejected it all. Based on what? Why is it? Just because it doesn't make any sense anymore. Just all of a sudden you just come with this idea that it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, therefore it doesn't happen. It's not real. And it's Satan who does. I know that exists. I've run into him several times. And I'm joking in one sense, but that's the greatest thing is he's fooled people into believing is that he doesn't exist. That this is not all true. And he sits back and he laughs at all the people that are entering in the narrow gate into the wide gate.
That's time. Thank you guys.
All right.
Thank you guys for this entertaining debate. I didn't have to do much moderation. You guys were debating and holding it down all yourselves. I never once had to interject. And this was a very, what can I say, an easy debate. And it's very informative. And, you guys respected each other. And I take my hat off to both you guys, for being willing participants. If you're a Christian, I truly believe that you need to be a soul winner. You need to have discussions and have debates with former Christians and atheists if you're ever going to make a difference, rather than just demonize them, which is something that Stephan hasn't done. And Stephan many times has stepped up to the plate and he's been a willing participant. And Alan is,
I would love to take on Preston. Oh, yeah. Bring him on. Yeah. Come on.
I would also like to see Alan have a debate with Don Preston. I think that he'd be a great runner-up for that. Alan was a former full preterist, and Don still promotes his published literature when Alan was a full preterist. And I think that would be absolutely phenomenal because I think it was Barry who asked the question about full preterism leading people out of Christianity. And if, we wanted a full preterist eschatology to do that, I think full preterism can be instrumental in that. But anyways, Alan is definitely, he's an author. He's, a debater. He has a podcast. And I put all the links to those descriptions or in the description. I put the link to his literature and his podcast. And Alan is somebody who's been there, done that. And Stephan is somebody who's been there, done that. So these are two veteran voices, you guys, within the world of, scholasticism. And so I just want to thank both of you guys for having this well-mannered discussion. It was very ethical. It was full of decorum. And so I can't thank you, gentlemen, enough. And if you ever want to have another rematch or round two, we can do that. And so keep me posted, you guys. Any other final words? I know you guys gave your final arguments, but are there any final words before we exit off of the stream?
Yeah, I just want to say, Stephan, this is the first time we've met in person. And I gotta say, I'm very pleased to have met you. This was far more delightful of a conversation than I even thought it would be. Like, I actually wish that we were friends and that you went to my church when I was a pastor. I feel like we would have grown faster. you would have. You're such a teddy bear, man. We could have had so many more people at my church because of you. But no, you're a great guy, man. Thanks for doing this. I hope we stay in touch
When I
and have a
first
chance.
heard about Alan Bondar and the reputation that he had, what I heard was, this is a man that is respected. He is loved. He knows the word. He's got a desire and a passion and a love for God. That's what I heard about you. And when I heard you became a full preterist, I refused to go after you. I did write a book. I did respond to your book. It's in mine, a full refutation of the thing. But I refused to get online, and I did comment a couple times to things and talk to you, but I never pressed anything. I refused to do it, and because of it. And Tristan, this is going to go for you too. I don't care how it sounds. There's something still inside both of you that God is working out. And I'm not talking, I know what you said earlier. Oh, this is for your thing and everything else like this. These are deep struggles. These are still deep questions and everything else. And if it's from the heart that you really want to know, I know that God will do something that you cannot believe. And I bring that up because of Nigel Taylor. I don't know if you guys have been listening to him and him talking to Sam. He's been interacting here and there. And then he did a whole thing with Sam about his walk into full preterism, what it ended up. I mean, he ended up out into it and going into the occult, reading tarot cards and everything else. And he gave the full things. But something happened that just radically changed his life and brought him back to the truth. I mean, that would be an interesting thing for you to go listen to, Nigel Taylor, and he's talking with Sam on one of his things, and just to listen to that. Because that's what I'm praying will happen to you guys.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's what
life is a journey, and Nigel is a good man. Sam is a good man, and both you gentlemen are good men, apart from our religious differences. And so, I guess.
And if I may, I'm sorry, Tristan, but I just want to make sure I say this while you're on this topic, and I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize, but
no.
I want you, Tristan, Stephan to know, or Stephan, sorry, Stephen. You go Stephen, right? I'm assuming is how you pronounce it. And Nigel and Sam and all these, like my beef with the arguments for the existence of God and your belief in God or whatever is completely separate from my feelings towards you guys as individuals. So I like all of you. I think I consider you all my friends, especially you. I just like you. Like, you're a really good guy. I do hope we stay in touch. So always know that, we're going to have that difference of opinion on God, but that shouldn't change the fact that we can be friends, and that's the way it should be.
Now, I'm just wondering if that type of benevolence is from your carnal flesh, or is that from divinity? I'm not sure where that came from.
Well,
maybe the Holy Spirit.
I prayed before we started the debate, and
okay,
the Holy Spirit is holding me here, so we're good.
Yeah, I get it. I appreciate your kind words, Alan. I appreciate your kind words, Stephen, and for being good sports. This is how debating should be. I thought I saw a lady. She posted, "Thank you for not talking over each other," which there was hardly any of that. So thank you guys for being veterans and keeping it professional. And I hope somebody benefits from this. And of course, we are. I don't know what ticket number this. Does God exist proposition has been argued for the centuries. I don't know. This is probably literally like the billionth time.
Wait, do we win a prize? Is there like the billionth time with us?
Yes, yeah. We need to have exactly. And you know what? It's gonna keep going.
You know what? I really wish that right in the middle of one of these big debates, God would show up and do something, saying, "I told you I was here. I told you. Just one thing. Just one time. Just do it."
We would all explode. We all explode, like Moses. His face would shine like the sun. All he saw was the backhands of his glory, But I guess we'll find out, who is the true winner of this debate when we die. Maybe I guess.
Well, if Steven's right, then he'll know. If we're right, we'll have no clue.
I think before.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
I think
but that's pretty much it. When we die, I guess we'll know then. Maybe not.
Right.
So
yeah,
again,
yeah. Trump might be the beast. You never know.
you never know. You never know. And life is a journey. And I think you guys are both winners in this debate. Whoever is on Alan's side, they're gonna say he won, and if whoever's on Stephen's side, they're gonna say he won. That's just how debates are. There's no referee, there's no judges, and even if there was a referee and a judge, well, I guess the moderator would be a referee. But if there was judges, even that would be disputed. So anyways, thank you guys for serving the preterist community. You guys are more than welcome to utilize my platform if you want to have another debate, a group discussion. And so again, those of you guys that are interested in Alan's literature and his content, I posted it in the description. Stephen, I'll go ahead and post your YouTube channel as well. Elisha Bones, correct? Wasn't it? Elisha Bones was your YouTube channel?
Elisha's Bones.
Elisha Bones, yeah. So I'll go ahead and post that as well. So reach out to them, you guys. They are reachable. If you haven't came on the Facebook scene, we have a group called Preterist Perspectives, Discussions, and Debate. You're more than welcome to join us in that group. We're all in that group, us and a host of many other voices in the preterist community who are very commendable and well respected. So enter into that group. You can post freely. And if you like to debate or have an open live discussion, you could reach out to any of us, and we'd be more than willing. So it looks like Barry's still here. I got to put
everybody else left.
Dude, that's funny. That's so
everybody else left at 6.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
That last comment's killing me.
Yeah. Well, it's super. I guess it's Super Bowl time. I guess people are now wanting to go. Watch the game. I'm not into football, you guys, but maybe you guys are. And those of you guys in the audience, to me, this is better than football. This is obviously much more important than football, this topic. And, I'm just happy that you guys had a wonderful debate and something to remember and look back to. So thank you so very much, gentlemen. I'm going to sign off with that, and I will see you guys in the future. And I wish you gentlemen nothing but the best. Thank you for being good sports and willing participants.
Great to see you guys. Bye.
Peace out, you guys. Much love. Bye, everyone in the audience. Thank you for your attention, and tune in again. Have a good day.